All right, I'm here in India and it just feels surreal because I never thought that I would be here, so it feels amazing. And I've partnered with Mediatek to show you what the brand new Vivo X200 Pro can do. This is a perfect time to test this camera and also test it against some of the other flagships and just share with you my experience on this Mediatek trip. This is gonna be awesome. Let's do it. Let's back up a little bit. Why was I in India in the first place? Well, Mediatek this year decided to invite me and some of my friends to New Delhi to talk about how deep their partnership is in India. Here's a fun fact. Did you know that Mediatek has over 54% market share when it comes to smartphones in India? I mean, that is pretty wild. So I got to learn a lot about the Indian culture and how Indian people think and embrace technology. I know a lot of you watching my channel are from India, so I really appreciate you. I am forever grateful because I got a chance to visit because it really helped me get to know the Vivo X200 Pro. I got to use it every day and took over 500 photos from my week in India, and I have a lot to share. And I don't care if I spoil it. I think this is the best smartphone camera that I've used this year. Yes, it's not an iPhone, it's not a Samsung Galaxy, this is distinctly Vivo, and while it does have a few caveats, this is an amazing camera which I will go over in depth in this video. First, let's talk about the Vivo X200 Pro itself. The design is very Vivo, pretty standard large circle camera cluster here. I do have one regret, and that is buying the sapphire blue color. Yes, it does shift with the light and has that really cool brushstroke pattern, but it's really slippery and it's a fingerprint magnet. Thank goodness it does come with a case in the box which color matches, but if I had to do it all over again, I would have picked another color because of how slippery it is. Besides that, this is a flagship all the way, and I'm really surprised because this is not the Ultra version. It has a 6.78-inch 120Hz display with 4500 nits of peak brightness. It has an ultrasonic fingerprint scanner which works really well, 90-watt wire charging, 30-watt wireless charging, and reverse wireless charging. And it also has a 6000 milliamp hour battery, which I can say was super impressive while using this in India. Even with all the photos and videos I was taking, I never drained the battery in a day with heavy use, so that is great. But the heart of this phone is running the brand new Mediatek Dimensity 9400. This is one of the first phones with it, and this is an extremely capable chip. Of course, it is faster and more efficient and gets a nice bump up in the graphics department, gets faster RAM, more L2 and L3 cache, more efficient NPU, and so much more. To be honest, talking about all the specs of the new chipset can get really technical, and it doesn't tell you the entire story. For me, it's really about the day-to-day performance. So let me say that the Mediatek Dimensity 9400 really flies on the Vivo X200 Pro. Everything is extremely smooth and fluid, apps launch extremely fast, there's no weird jitters or stutters. I do love seeing that Vivo is continuing the trend of releasing their new flagships with Mediatek processors first. The more variety that we have in processor power keeps the industry competitive. And it does look like Mediatek is gaining momentum because right after India, I went to Bali for the Oppo Find X8 series launch, and these devices are also sporting the Dimensity 9400 as well. This just means that we'll see more flagship power at different price points, so that's always a win for the consumer. So here's a good example. Vivo X200 Mini, killer specs, $799, and it's also running the Dimensity 9400 chipset as well. So I'm hoping to see a lot more phones being powered by this chipset, and we'll definitely see a lot more next year. Since this is the Chinese version of the phone, I'm going to wait on the global version to update you on the software. You can read on a spec sheet that the NPU and ISP is faster, but until I started taking photos with this phone and started seeing it processing in real time, that's what made me a believer of these spec bumps. The camera opened up quickly, never skipped a beat, shutter speed was quick. This made capturing all my experiences in India so easy. And after looking back at these photos, wow, I have a new respect for what Vivo is doing. They are leveraging every ounce of this chipset, and the camera is fantastic. So quick breakdown of the camera cluster. This is a triple camera system with a 50 megapixel main sensor and a 50 megapixel ultra wide sensor. But what makes this camera system unique is the 200 megapixel periscope camera. And this gives it a native 3.7x optical zoom, but it allows some incredible clarity across the full zoom range. And most noticeably, it gives you bokeh from very far away using portrait mode with software, and this made it perfect for street photography. It also gives you super macro with the zoom lens, so this is very different than the usual ultra wide macro mode on other phones. The more photos that I took, the more I was blown away, and I just couldn't put this phone down. I'm not kidding, it got so bad at one point that all the other creators around me just kept telling me to shut up about this phone because I kept going on and on and on about it. And this one changed the way I think about smartphone cameras because it doesn't feel like you're shooting on a smartphone. Let me explain. So Vivo's camera software does keep the photographer in mind, but what I think makes this phone unique is that anyone can get a great photo. If your skill is just limited to just hitting the shutter button, then you can't go wrong. just snap away and the colors are vibrant. You get a great look right out of the camera. All of your zoom lenses are right here, so this is a very familiar interface, so anyone can use it. But when you dig into the software, this is when it just starts to make sense. If you hit the top right here, this gives you 3 different looks: vivid, which looks bright and social media ready; textured, which gives you a contrasty look; and Zeiss Natural if you want the most accurate colors. Here's an example of all of them so you can see the different traits, so you can pick your base look that easily. There are a ton of modes like snapshot, which really felt like magic. No matter how fast you're moving or how fast your kids and pets are, it literally freezes time, and I couldn't believe it when I saw it. The processing is so fast and it feels unreal, so you have to try this when you get this phone. There's a stage mode for taking pictures at concerts, but I tried this with some of my fellow creators when they were on stage at the fan meetup in India and another panel at the Tech Diaries, and I was sitting so far back, but the 10x zoom and beyond just looks so clean. There is a full-blown pro mode, so you can get full control over everything, including the format, the resolution, and so much more. And the high resolution mode that captures 200 megapixels, but beware, it punches in super hard because it's using that periscope lens. And here it is compared to the 200 megapixel mode on the Galaxy S24 Ultra. You can just see how different that is when it comes to focal length. But my absolute favorite mode is humanistic camera, and this looks totally different than the regular camera app. It really makes you feel like you're shooting on a hybrid compact camera. I think this was introduced with the Vivo X100 series with a software update. There are 2 ways to get to this mode. In the regular camera app, there's a little arrow at the bottom. Hit that and you will enter the street photography mode. Or if you just double click the volume down button while the phone is locked, it will go directly into this mode as well, which is so handy. What this does get you thinking in is strictly focal length from 24mm to 135mm, so you get comfortable with that real quick. You can get a histogram if you need, and all the quick controls when you need to dial down exposure, white balance, and bokeh. And what's great is you can even save presets, which is so cool. You can even change metering styles up here, so much control, and you can choose your style like you can on the standard camera app with the addition of black and white, which looks really good by the way. I used it way more than I thought I would, and what this does is just makes the photo taking experience so fun, and the outcomes are just incredible. These are probably some of the best portrait mode shots that I've ever seen from a mobile camera. If you cook up your own settings, you can elevate this camera even more, but I literally just left everything as is and just snapped as many photos as I could, and dang, do these pictures look legit. You do get qualities that can be mixed depending on what your preference is. The highlights are not artificially suppressed, so you get the qualities of a proper mirrorless or compact point and shoot camera. The skin rendition is brightened slightly, but not in a distasteful way. And there are a ton of styles to choose from on portrait mode, and I found myself using vintage a lot because it just gives you that perfect quality and tone. It's not over sharpened, it's not over processed, and some shots look, do I say, softer, which gives it a different quality than we're used to seeing on smartphones right now. And I can't say enough about the vibes of these photos. The closest thing I can compare it to is almost like having a little Fuji in your pocket. These photos are ready to go straight out of the camera, and I've yet to come across a camera that is this consistent in producing photos like this. The roll-off is some of the most natural that I've seen. It's almost feathered around the subject and not as harsh as we see on some cameras like the Google Pixel. But if you want to tweak the depth of field, you can pick what the bokeh looks like. There are so many Zeiss lens emulations available, and here's an example of the Starbucks sign shot in 135mm. It's great that you can get this type of control over your bokeh, and I'm not saying that you can't do this on other apps, but having all of this here in one place makes it feel so cohesive, and I think that's what makes a difference in this camera experience. This camera made me forget about all the specs. I just wanted to shoot as many photos as possible, and it really did bring that excitement back on shooting on a smartphone again. And just like how some people look at a souvenir to help them remind them of a time somewhere, now I can look at the X200 Pro and it will always remind me of my experience in India and all the photos and videos that I took while I was there. Now, on the other side of the coin, I know some of you won't agree with me because smartphone camera processing is definitely based on personal preference, and I know this type of processing style is not everyone's cup of tea, so you know I had to compare the Vivo with some of the biggest flagship phones out there. If you look at the video, Vivo has come a long way, and while the iPhone 16 Pro Max is still better video overall, it definitely looks good. What I do like is that the white balance is calculated so well on the Vivo. You can see it on the iPhone that the white balance shifts when we move from a totally different scenario, but the Vivo maintains that warm sunset, which is accurate to the scene, so that is impressive. What's also great is that this camera shoots up to 8K video, does 4K 120 frames per second video as well, and it also has log recording. I got to test it at the Taj Mahal, and it comes out flat like you see here, but when you grade it, it is full of color and dynamic range, so it is no slouch when it comes to video. The only downside to the video is at night, the ultra wide takes a large hit when it comes to light, so when you're switching lenses, you'll notice a big hit, so I thought I would point that out, but this happens on almost all smartphone cameras and is not unique to the X200 Pro. The iPhone 16 Pro Max and the Vivo X200 Pro both take great photos, but they do have different approaches. The Vivo definitely with the higher exposure, usually creating a brighter image. It does vary depending on zoom lenses, but they're both very detailed. Just like any other comparison, some of the images can look very similar like this one, but portraits is where I can tell the difference, so let me know which one that you think looks better in the comment section below. The color and contrast is so rich on the Vivo, but the iPhone also looks great. This is the front-facing camera, and you can see totally different approaches to the skin tone. As I was saying earlier, the highlights are brighter on the Vivo, so it doesn't look as contrasty as the iPhone, so that'll be a personal preference for sure, but let me know if you like the sharper look of the iPhone or the less processed portrait mode of the Vivo. I'm curious to see what you guys like. The only danger in the Vivo is when it over accentuates certain colors. It can be very dramatic like it is here, so it isn't perfect. This is a really hard photo to get right in the Vivo, showing a huge shadow lift here, so let me know if you like that. iPhone with a very noticeable lens reflection there, but you can also see it on the Vivo as well. And this picture of Tim Schofield is one of my favorites from this trip. The Vivo just nailing the dynamic range and capturing all the right highlight details. This selfie at the Taj Mahal, the white balance is better on the Vivo, but the iPhone keeping the colors more natural and true to life, where the Vivo goes for the saturated look. But let's bring the Galaxy S24 Ultra in, and Samsung and Apple almost look identical, but the Vivo does look more vibrant, especially in the skin tone. Depending on your preferences, you might not like the Vivo in portrait mode, the S24 Ultra giving the best balance between the two. Again, the Vivo bringing up the shadow detail to give you incredible dynamic range. iPhone's balancing is very aggressive on this photo, and the S24 Ultra is a blend of the two. The iPhone on the 2X exposes me better and actually has the most accurate rendition at this focal length, but the X200 Pro's image I feel is what we're trying to get with edits before posting on social media. Sometimes the outcomes aren't that drastically different than what is out there, like in this shot, and it can inaccurately over accentuate some colors like this, or even like this, but the beauty of that is you can fix a lot of that with just going with Zeiss natural colors, so let me know. Do you like Vivo's processing, or do you like Apple's and Samsung's better? To round it up, I did take some pictures along with the Google Pixel 9 Pro XL as well. The Pixel is definitely more natural with the colors, where the Vivo is more vibrant. This is the X200 Pro with the vintage portrait mode, and while the blur is much better on the Vivo, if you like to edit your photos and want more of a muted shot, then the Pixel 9 Pro XL is definitely the better camera for that. But personally, I like the Vivo X200's images better most of the time. The one thing I do like about the Pixel 9 Pro XL is the front-facing camera. I love the ultra-wide angle, and it does take some great selfies. Here are some more shots that I took, so take a look at them and let me know what you think. When it comes to certain traits, I do like the S24 Ultra better, especially in the front-facing camera, but to wrap things up, I don't think that the Vivo X200 Pro is trying to be perfect and technical with every photo. It is trying to give some type of character and life to the photos, and I personally appreciate this. These colors and renditions evoke emotion and give personality to the images, and this stands out in the landscape of almost every smartphone looking the same, copying each other's processing. I think until you experience it yourself and take this phone with you on your next vacation or your next adventure, you really won't know what it's like because it's really hard to explain. So I challenge you, if you're in a market where this phone is sold and you have the means to pick one up, then do so and use it and compare it to the smartphone that you're using right now, and I can almost guarantee you that you will not be disappointed. Maybe not for video, but this is my favorite photography tool right now, so until something dethrones it, this is it. So let me know, are you a Vivo fan, and have you ever heard of Vivo before in your life? And if you haven't, then you definitely need to check them out. So I know that low light images are missing, but I feel like this is a big segment, so I will be doing a dedicated video against the X200 Pro, and I will be doing that with the leading flagships out there. So that is a video that is coming, so I will definitely leave that link down below whenever it's ready, so stay tuned for that. Thank you for watching. I hope you liked it, and I'll see you guys in the next one.